How many of you guys consider yourself to be like really good at PvP? Don't worry, you can gloat. This chat's the place you want to be if you want to gloat about how good you are. But really, let's hear it. Anyone thinks they're really good? So in this game, like there's something I want to talk about is like being skillful in BDO. There's a few things that go into it, just like any MMORPG, any online game. There are like mechanical skills, knowledge-based things, another efficiency you have to, really master. And each class is different. There's like almost like what, 38 specs now, or is it 40 now? So the first thing I want to, go over really quickly is having knowledge in your own class. If you're a new player, it can get pretty overwhelming. This game has a very steep learning curve. So where do you start off when you're trying to learn the game? First things first, depending on your class, you're going to have Awakening in Succession, or if you're an Archer or a Shy, that's not going to be the case. But for most classes, you'll probably want to go Awakening first because they require less amount of skill points to have a complete proficiency of your kit. Of course, if you have like high skill points, you get all the advantages of your pre-awakening as well. But just to start off, it's easier to learn I can't say it for every class. Me as a striker, I went straight into Succession, no problem, because it only took like 1100, 1200 skill points to get all the skills for my damage rotation. So, generally it's easier to start off with your Awakening just because you can fill out all the skills to the max a lot quicker. Whereas for Succession, you have to fill it out the base form, and then, where is a good example? Like these. You have to fill out the base form, and then you have to also level up the Succession skills. Like for this one, you need to level it up 3 times and such. So this one's like 4 times. So it depends on the class, but generally Awakening is probably the way to go. Like you can complete all the skills for Awakening a lot sooner. But like I said, it comes down to personal preference and which class you're playing. But most important thing, always remember that your skills are going to be like really different. Like for example, if this one says it's a forward guard, I can turn this skill around. Like it's lingering, it's a forward guard, and it also turns. Whereas if I'm doing Shift Z, this is just going to be a forward guard in that direction. There's no way to protect myself on the side. So make sure you know every little detail about your skill, how to use it, how to cancel out of it, and exactly how much of a protection it is. Like for example, if I use this skill, when I'm coming down, it might say it's a super armor, but it's only a small fraction of it. Like if I do this, the whole thing should have been a super armor, but it's only when it's coming down. Like when I'm at my peak before I start coming down, or when I land on the ground, it usually doesn't protect me. So it's one of those things that you just gotta have like a bit of I guess you got to test each skill yourself and find out exactly how much of it is protected, because when it says it's super armor, not all of it. Like this skill is Hidden Claw. When you use it, there's an iframe to it, but that iframe is so brief. Like it's only that during that period where I was moving through here. So even though it is brief, it has a lot of uses. I use it in PvP all the time, like not as an offensive skill like that, but rather I use it just to move around or, iframe out of skills. At the same time, you got to know all the animation cancels of your class. For example, for Mystic, that skill I just showed you right now, that one was Hidden Claw, and Fist of Fury is also a similar one where it goes back. This is the Hidden Claw, and Fist of Fury goes back as well. So that can get annoying when you're playing PvE, and it also like it's a small fraction of a second, but it's enough time to like, over time, it is a small DPS loss. It's not a huge one, but it is. However, with Mystic especially, she has a lot of animation cancels. So this backward motion, you can actually cancel it by using that skill right out of Soul Basher. So this is Soul Basher, it's the kick. So using that, I can immediately go into Hidden Claw without going backwards. So animation cancels like that, it's really different for every class, obviously, because different skills, right? But those things make a huge difference in how well you can play, how efficient you are, how much trash loot you're pulling. Let me actually pull up the cancel screenshot. So for example, Wave Orb is one of my strongest hitting skills, but it has a cast time on it. Like there's actually a cast bar which fills up. However, there's a lot of ways to cancel into Wave Orb, so you don't have to charge it. Like let me show you how it looks. So this is how Wave Orb looks. You charge up, you let go, and it goes boom. Once the cooldown's out, I'll show you how to cancel into it. Like for example, it has multiple options here, like after Fist of Fury or after Hidden Claw, after Thunder Pound, right after dash. This is a really good one because I initiate with dash and Shift LMB. I can immediately go into a stun with the Wave Orb, which is like, you gotta mix it up in PvP obviously, so it's always good to know all the options you have. Like for example, that Wave Orb, you can cancel it like this. You dash in and immediately do it at full damage, no drawbacks. Of course, if you have 3-shard, it does more damage, but yeah, pretty much that's one of the things. Like every class is going to be different. The best resource you have for your classes is your class Discord. I think you'll get the most comprehensive information from there, and there's going to be a lot of people you can ask questions to. And yeah, that's one of the things that you're going to have to research on your own and practice. So if you look at here down, this one is one of the things you need to master for PvE. It tells you here, you can cancel into Fist of Fury from Soul Basher. So you cancel into that, and then immediately you can cancel into Wave Orb. Or you can go from like Soul Basher into Hidden Claw, into Fist of Fury, and then into Wave Orb. So it's these kind of cancels that really make a difference in your trash loot. Like it can be the difference of hundreds of trash loot. So yeah, a lot of classes have these kind of animation cancels. Warrior's a big one. Awakening Valk's a big one. A lot of them. Minimum SP for a Succession Mystic, I think to be like efficient, like 1750, but you can start sooner. If you guys are starting Succession early on, how you want to go about deciding your skill points is research into the classes or in the class Discord, find out your rotation. For example, with a Striker, I can show you right now. I started playing Succession Striker at like 1200 SP, 1100 SP. The reason I was able to grind with it is because I took all the skills I used for my main damage rotation. I didn't have the bells and whistles with the mobility and the other skills, but it was enough to do like solid damage while grinding. So class knowledge is absolutely important. It takes a lot of time. This is a game with a high learning curve and a very high skill cap. Like some classes have lower skill floors than others. That means that you can pick them up a lot easier. For example, you can pick up a Guardian a lot easier than playing an Awakening Ninja well, right? So it comes down to your own pace at which you practice. Best thing to do, go to your class Discords, learn all the information there, watch a lot of videos, see how other people are playing. If you're going to a new grind spot, go to YouTube and search for that grind spot for your class. For example, if you're a LAN, search Star's End grinding LAN, and you'll find some videos where someone posted their hour grinding or something, so you can see how they're pulling. I also want to go over add-ons, but let me show you the skills I was talking about. So for the main damage for a Succession Striker, it comes through the Adamantine tree, where it has sub-skills which it flows into, as well as the Crimson Fang tree, where these skills all flow in right after Crimson Fang. So I immediately got those two maxed out, and also I leveled up things like Rage Hammer. I really liked the way Rage Hammer flowed into it for Succession, where he does this little jump. Let me show you. He does that little jump, and Rage Hammer gave me, when it hits the target, it gives an attack speed buff, which really makes a big difference. So learn all the ins and outs of your class. Each skill that's a part of your rotation, learn everything about it, and it just takes a lot of practice. But knowledge is going to be the first step to actually being good. Second step of knowledge is like knowing your enemy's classes. Now that's a lot harder because a lot of classes are really intricate, really complicated, but over time you'll start learning exactly which class has grabs, which class's skills are super armor, which is the iframe, approximately how much time is the cooldown on their grabs or something like that. So eventually you'll build up your knowledge in those sort of things. But one way to go about learning other classes is obviously make trial accounts. Trial characters are really good, but also you can join into global labs pretty easily. You can just sign up here. I'm already applied as a tester, so I can't show you how to sign up, but if you go to global lab, you'll have like 20 slots where you can make all the classes and just learn about it. That's really important to know exactly what you're up against. So yeah, that takes time and it takes effort, but if you're able to get past that point where you know exactly what the other classes can do, that immediately puts you at like a really high level where you know exactly how to counter the classes, how to play against other classes. But of course you can just be like me and go to BA for like 100 hours and learn the old-fashioned way. So the next thing about being knowledgeable in your class is obviously knowing your skill rotation. Certain classes have a very static skill rotation, like for example, a striker. It's always going to be either starting off with adamantine tree or Crimson Fang tree, and then I'll probably do a discharge and then skull crusher, then dash behind them, and then do the other tree. But mastering your base damage rotation is so important in PvE as well as PvP. I was terrible at striker PvP when I first started doing it, but every time I caught someone in a CC, they would always die because I was so good at my PvE rotation. I was always good at that one little thing. So make sure you master your PvE rotation. They differ for PvP and PvE. Like for example, Mystic. In PvE, it's all about building up 3 shards, 3 martial shards, and then releasing all of them with certain skills like Wave Orb or Tiger Strike or Rage Hammer, Sea Burial. So it differs for me in PvP because in PvP it's about me doing the most damage in that quickest amount of time. So I never do a back-to-back martial shard consuming skill like a Tiger Strike into a Wave Orb. They do cancel into each other, but I never really do it in PvE because it's not efficient. I miss out on the damage of having the martial shards for the Wave Orb, right? In PvP, however, the Tiger Strike always extends the CC. It's really reliable. So I do use that back to back. So it comes down to like just a situation, learning all your skills, how they interact. Let me switch back to Mystic. So your rotation in PvE is like pretty standard, but PvP rotations, there's a lot of different types. Like when I look up like an Awakening Mystics PvP rotations, there's so many different ways you can do it. So that kind of thing comes with time. Like now I don't even think about a rotation. I just know when according to which situation, which skill I should use. Like Rage Hammer doesn't do a lot of single target damage, but when the mobs are spread out in a certain manner, I can see that these 2 are going to die, but I don't want to turn and hit them directly. I'll use a Rage Hammer. So it comes down to that. And also your add-ons. So you can go into your class Discord and actually just look up what the best add-ons are. I'll just ask someone or check out the guides there. However, the basic principle behind add-ons is like this. In a full PvE rotation, your add-ons should all be procced. Like you pick and choose your add-ons in such a manner that you'll have all the major buffs in that entire rotation after you complete the entire rotation. So same concept can go into PvP. Now PvP is a lot different. Like you can play with a lot of dots, you can play with a lot of evasion. It comes down to you. You can pick like down smashes or additional CCs on your skill. It's a much more personal choice in terms of how you play. But you can follow the same concept where when you do your PvP rotation, you want to be hitting as many add-ons as possible to increase your damage output. The next part of this is your efficiency when pulling. Like if you start grinding at Aukman, Histria, those are like the end game spots where it's actual grinding. Like all the other spots are just one-shotting mobs. So that's when you actually start at proper end game spots. So along with knowing your rotation, having the right buffs, having gear, how efficiently you pull is really important. So to learn this, make sure you guys go watch a lot of videos. Like there are a lot of resources out there where people show their half-hour or 1 hour of grinding, and you can learn how to pull efficiently by watching those. Now you could figure it out yourself like I did, but you should know exactly which is the best option. For example, in Star's End, breaking this crystal will knock these mobs down and you do a ton of damage on them when they're in the down state. However, just pulling them and just for me to wait for them to come in is such a waste of time that it's much more efficient for me to actually just kill them straight up. Where, if you're a newer player, it might actually be beneficial for you to pull that. Like when I was like 245 AP here at Star's End, I would always use the crystals. But now I don't need to do that. Similarly, like you should know your mob limit well enough that when you're pulling, you know exactly how many mobs you have, and that you don't hit that limit and just start splitting your pulls. where that's going to eat into the time you're going to take for your full rotation of your mobs. So learning how to pull is really important in terms of getting a high trash loot count, and that also comes down under skill play and being efficient at your class and learning your rotation well. So those are things you got to keep in mind. Those do come with time. Like after you grind like a spot for like 30 hours, you'll pick it up. But yeah, make sure you look at like there might be some guides for your class, or like I think for Striker, I really enjoyed Frushi's guides. They're really well put together. I mean, I had never in a million years would think like, oh, I need to make a Striker guide for Star's End, because Frushi's is already there and it's like on point. So check out guides and learn the rotation. Being able to pull efficiency really increases how much money you make in BDO, at least grinding. Like being mechanically efficient, knowing exactly how your skills work. Like this is a weird skill combo that not many people do. I really enjoy canceling my Shift Z, my Rabam skill. I think it's called Perfect Blow, is it? What is this called? Yeah, Perfect Blow into Mass Destruction. It just feels good to do that. It's like a frontal guard going in and then coming in with a stun, which is a protected super armor. So like it's these kind of weird things that you can really pick up and you know, really master after time. But you have to explore your class and understand how your class works, how everything cancels into each other, how protected you are during each skill, and do the research, spend time in BA, practice with your friends. And it takes time, but eventually you'll pick it up. So yeah, the next thing is going to be a bit outside of the classes. First of all, FPS. FPS is a really important factor of the game just because of the way skills work. A certain skill might take a certain amount of FPS. If a skill takes 30 FPS from start to finish, that means it takes 30 frames for it to complete. If you have higher FPS, obviously the skill's going to go in quicker than not having it. So is what it is. So ways you can lower your FPS. There are quite a few solid guides on YouTube. You can check it out. But basically, you turn down your graphics as low as possible, like I'm doing right here. You remove any bells and whistles in your graphics which make things look prettier. For example, anti-aliasing, SSAO. You know, reducing hit effect actually does it. And keeping this on, reduce snow buildup, that's always good. Optimizations, you can use that if you have a lower NPC. Removing others' effect, especially when you're at like a boss fight or maybe like Node War. Of course, it's going to be a bit sketch when you're in a Node War and you can't see what skills your enemies are using. But removing faraway effects. I never go for these two because low power option reduces your performance, but upscale, it looks really crappy. And of course, going into crop mode reduces the amount of area, which is actual gameplay on your screen, which increases your FPS. So let's do that. And let's take a look at what the FPS is now. Star's End is notoriously known for being a low FPS zone, but it is what it is. Some spots are better, but yeah. Right now I'm streaming, so I'm not able to get the full FPS I have. Like now it's touching 98, 99. Before I was like in lower 90s. If I was in like BA or something, that's where it's really noticeable. Also, apparently turning this to 3D mode will actually increase the FPS. Removing auto arrange in here and on your storage. Let's do that really quick. Apparently that also plays into FPS. To what extent, I don't know, but FPS is really important, unfortunately. For streaming, like because I have like, you know, the PC isn't as good as it should be. I haven't upgraded pieces in a long time. I think it's getting to that point where I need to, but for streaming I like keeping it in remaster just so it looks nice for you guys. Anyway, certain classes like Warrior, I think Val, Kuno, Ninja, high APM classes especially are really noticeable when there's when you have a high FPS. And when you're facing off against someone who's like using their maximum FPS, you actually see them like coming in a lot quicker. It looks really sketch. It almost looks like they're hacking out, but they're not. It's just how the game is built. And we'll move into some other things. So in this game, mouse movements isn't that much of an issue, but it is really important. For example, you know, the skill Thunder Pound on Mystic is a perfect example for that. But basically being able to turn your skill precisely at the moment to probably block an incoming attack and stuff. That's always really important to be able to do. To do that, make sure your DPI and your mouse sensitivity isn't too high. it has to be at a medium level. Like I can go from full end-to-end on my screen pretty easily with a pretty decent swipe. But yeah, mouse movement is really important. How you can improve your mouse movement, I mean, you can play like browser games, like certain things like aim booster, or there's like some aim games you can play on the browser. Like I said, mouse movement isn't as important on this game, but it is really important when you're like when you have skills which can be turned while doing them. But you know, you got to make sure you hit your skills right. There's also aim labs if you're into FPS stuff. That also helps your aim. But APM, now building APM is a bit more, you know, tedious. Like APM is basically actions per minute. If you ever saw an APM tracker in like the old Dota or in StarCraft, that counts both the mouse actions as well as the keyboard. But of course in this game, APM on your keyboard is where it's at, the most important thing. It's not very demanding on your mouse, so yeah. How to increase your APM? Obviously, keeping your hands strong. I use a grip trainer like this. I'm always doing it when I'm AFK. I had issues where when I, like 4 years ago, when I was playing World of Warcraft Legion, I was playing a class which was very high APM. It was Frost Death Knight. It had a build called a machine gun build where attacks are flying off rapidly. You do like rapid damage. Of course, you had to have the APM to match it. So I was smashing the keyboard hard and it actually ended up like straining my fingers. No permanent damage or anything, it's just muscle strain. But how I get around that is by actually doing this grip trainer. You can't like strengthen a joint, but you can strengthen the muscles which support the joint. So good thing to remember if you're having hand pain when playing a lot of video games and stuff, that's one way to get around it. Same concept goes for your knees, so like strengthening your hamstring, your quads also help. But yeah, anyway, increasing your APM, you could do like typing practice. As silly as it sounds, playing a game like Type Hero really helps to increase your APM. Having higher typing speed is generally a direct relation to it, right? So yeah, I mean, just go easy on your hand. Know when to go all out, know when to hold back. If you're grinding for 6 hours a day, don't go full-blown 100% APM. Certain classes need a lot more of it. Like it takes a lot more inputs for a tamer than it does for a guardian. A guardian's considered the lowest APM class, where because she has a lot of lingering skills, a lot of slow animation skills, but they're hard hitting, so you're efficient even if you're not going high APM. I think that was the last thing I really wanted to cover. So let's just do a quick recap. Like, first thing, knowledge in your class and other classes. Know your skills, know everything about your skills, read everything down to each detail, what buffs it gives, what add-on options you have, how it's going to supplement your rotation. If you're not hitting all your add-ons while doing a PvE rotation, it might be wasted, right? There are certain cases, for example, with Rage Hammer on my Mystic, where it gives me DP buff as well as evasion. So I don't always hit it during PvE, but I have that option to be tankier. So that's a good option to keep in mind when you're picking your add-ons. But generally, you can go to your class Discord, find all the information with your rotations, crystal builds, gear builds, PvP, PvE rotations. You'll find like content like in the Striker Mystic Discord, they like posting videos of them grinding, so I can learn the rotations of how they're pulling in a PvE spot. So make sure you learn as much as you can about your class, because that's going to be half the battle right there. Just knowing what your class can do, because after you know, you can practice it. Learn all the animation cancels; those are huge. Especially if you're like a Succession Mystic or Awakening Valk, animation cancels, especially an Awakening Warrior, like animation cancels are a deal breaker. Like it's a night and day difference between someone who's doing proper animation cancels and someone who doesn't do them. So next thing, know everything about your enemy classes. It takes a lot of time to go through 20 something classes, how many ever there are now, I forget. But learn all their skills, at least learn the main CC skills, like their grabs, their long range CCs, which are their main super armors, which have lingering super armors, like those sort of things. You can learn all that through practice and just dueling people, but it's much easier to just make a trial character and learn it, or go to a skill calculator and read it, or better yet, go to Global Labs and make 20 characters and have everything at your disposal. But yeah, do you have a guide on Striker and Mystic? No, but I am making a Mystic guide. If you want a Striker guide, look for Frushi. He has some solid guides for Strikers. Next, The efficiency in which you pull directly correlates to how much money you're making per hour. So that is also a big skill factor in this game. Mouse movement, you can get better mouse movement by playing Aim Labs or Aim Booster or similar type of browser games to improve your mouse aim, because you know, I know this is a pretty easy game to hit your skills on, but having fast mouse movements really can make or break how well you play. Like being able to turn accurately, using your backward movement with Mystic and stuff, side movements, it all plays into it. APM, you can improve it by playing typing games like Type Racer or Type Hero, and also exercising your hands. Make sure you don't overdo it. Our hands are really delicate, right? They're not made for going Hulk smash, right? So, you know, use exercises, whatever you can do, lift weights, whatnot. Keep yourself healthy. And APM, like being able to hold it out for many hours was like easy when I was like 10 years ago. I was like 19. I was able to hold out max APM like 10 hours a day. But now it's not as easy. So pace yourself. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to talk about today. Anyone have any questions, drop them in the chat. But you know, this is a game which has a very high skill ceiling. That's one of the great things about this game. It has a very moderate skill floor. A skill floor is basically how easily a new player can pick up the game. A skill ceiling is how long you have to go to master it, or how high the difficulty is. The monitor. Yeah, all right. Let me cover the monitors really quick. So like I said, we talked about FPS, right? Let me switch back to my Mystic. Well, so we talked about the FPS, right? So the refresh rate on your monitor will limit you. There is a way to bypass that slightly. Basically, if you're playing in full screen window mode, the monitor refresh rate is the maximum FPS that you'll be able to attain with the game. However, if you go into full screen mode, the game can calculate a higher FPS even though your monitor is not being able to provide that. Going to display settings, crop mode, going full screen, that actually lowers or increases your FPS. Let's say I'm getting 82 right here, 84. Let's go crop mode and full screen. I hope this doesn't mess up my stream. Oh, there was a stutter there. I don't know if this will work because I'm on remastered. Woof, look at that, 40 more FPS, 50 more FPS, that's crazy. But yeah, basically going full screen is a no-no for me while I'm streaming because I'm constantly going into other things. But yeah, for instance, if I was like on a 75 hertz monitor and I go into full screen, it's able to calculate higher FPS. So the game will still be pumping out my skills as if I have that high FPS. I'll still see 75 hertz, but the game calculates the skill start and completion a lot quicker. FPS is basically how you see it, but if the skill is going in faster, it might not look smoother, like it's something at like 130 FPS, but it'll still be a difference. There's been a lot of test videos on YouTube you can look for. FPS is directly correlated to damage in this game. Thanks for watching, guys, on future YouTube video.